Hey guys, welcome back to Bear Mountain Builds. I'm Zach, and today we are building a big and beefy loft for the new shop. Now, the first thing we're going to be doing for this loft is the posts. Now, most builds will just use 4x4s, but in the case of this being inside, and I want this loft to be a little bit bigger and beefier, we're going to be building our own posts out of 2x6s laminated together. Let's get started. I'm going to be building 6 posts made of 4 boards each, so I'm starting off with running 24 boards through the planer to flatten out the sides for laminating. For this build, I'm going to be planing a lot of long and heavy lumber, so I built a whole in-feed, out-feed roller system for my planer using my modular tables, and honestly, it works super well, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a dedicated video about it. With the planing done, I'm moving on to laminating. When you're laminating, you want to get complete glue coverage, and a second set of hands really makes the process go much faster. When I'm clamping the boards together, I'm making sure to keep the board edges flush on one side to keep the post close to square for planing, along with applying even clamp pressure the whole length. I have to say, I always enjoy a nice glue squeeze. The laminating process took a while because I had to let them dry for 24 hours and I only had enough clamps to do 2 posts at once.
The next day,
with the laminating done, I planed the post sides down to 5 1/4 inches wide and planed the faces down until they fit the post base, which is about 5 1/2 inches. With the post planed, I squared up the ends and then cut them to 7 foot 3 inches. My miter saw table wasn't quite long enough, so I added an extended bench top on my modular table. Alright, the posts are really starting to come together. Now I'm drilling 5 vertical 1/2 inch holes with my portable drill guide, then drilling the rest of the way with a longer bit because my guide couldn't quite get all the way through. With the holes drilled, I'm installing some 1/2 inch bolts. These bolts add some structural strength, but I'm mainly using them because they look cool, especially once I paint them black. If you want to see how this loft turns out, now is a great time to hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all the future videos. All right, our 6 posts are done. They are cut to length, they are squared off, and they are bolted, and they are big, beefy, and looking really cool. But this is just the warm-up, because now we're moving on to our headers. Just like my posts, I want both my headers to be big and beefy, so that's why I'm making them out of 2 16-foot 2x10s laminated together, which means it's time for more planing and gluing. I've got a lot of surface area to cover, so I'm dumping the glue straight out of the jug and using a putty knife to do the initial spread. Then I finished off the edges with my glue roller. I knew that these 2x10s were going to be too wide to just clamp down with trigger clamps, so I built 6 sets of cawls using angle iron and 3/8 inch bolts. These were super easy to make and honestly worked really well. Like I said before, I enjoy a good glue squeeze, but I think I got a little overzealous when I was pouring glue because this became more like glue Niagara Falls. Now, while those headers are drying, I want to take a quick second to talk about my partners and this video sponsor, Project to Payment. Project to Payment is my favorite tool for estimating, invoicing, getting paid, and so much more. My friends over there have made it super easy to use, and I love how it works seamlessly across all my devices. It's a breeze to bill for time and materials on projects, plus you get paid way faster with their instant invoice feature. If you're trying to keep costs low, you're in luck because Project to Payment has the lowest rates on the market and is just $20 a month for as many users as you need. I have a link to Project to Payment down in the video description, and if you use my code BEARMOUNTAINBUILDS at sign up, you'll get 3 months free, plus you'll be supporting the channel, so I'd really appreciate it if you check it out. Thanks to Project to Payment for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the build and pop those clamps off. These headers are about 100 pounds each and are the main reason I built the whole roller system. Because of this, my 20-year-old planer handled the headers no problem. All right, we got both of our headers all laminated and planed. Now, as you can tell, I still have to clean up these sides here. They're kind of covered in glue still. Now would be a great time to just run these through a joiner, but I don't have a joiner. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to take these, turn them up on their sides, and then I'm going to just use a hand planer and run it all the way down to clean these things up. I built a quick mount to help hold the header upright on my assembly table while I plane the sides. You can't see it because my arm's in the way, but I taped a little level to my hand planer to help keep me as square as possible. I took quite a few passes, but as you can see, it turned out pretty doggone flat. Finally, I cut both down to 13 feet 3 inches. As you can tell, it's getting a little chilly in here because winter has reared its ugly head here in Minnesota, which means I gotta get this loft built so I can get some heat in here. Now luckily, our laminated posts are done and they're looking really cool, along with our massive laminated headers are ready to go. So now it's time to get some stuff up on the wall, starting with our ledger board. So for mounting my ledger board, I don't want it just to be hanging off my wall and have a bunch of shear stress going through all that hardware. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the same principle that I did with my storage shelves, and that is load transfer. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to have 5 2x6 supports that are going to be mounted directly into the main studs of my building, and then these are going to be directly against the floor, and the ledger board is going to sit directly on top of these. That way we get good load transfer from our ledger board through our 2x6 and directly into the floor. First thing I got to do is find the length of the supports. I know the top of the ledger needs to be equal to the top of the headers, so I took a post with the mount and used an offcut of the header and measured the total length that will be the height of my loft, then subtracted the width of the 2x8 ledger to find the support length. I pre-drilled 3 centered holes on the support and lined all 3 up with my laser level line, then mounted the support with 3/8 inch by 3.5 inch long lag bolts. With the supports mounted, I started putting up the ledger boards that half overlap the supports using number 10 3/8 inch structural screws, but once I get my joists in, I'll be coming back and adding some lag bolts. All right, we got our supports and our ledger boards in, and they are rock solid. So now it's time to move to the front of the loft and put our posts in, which means it's time to start drilling some holes in concrete. When you're drilling into concrete, you want to avoid drilling into rebar. I'm using the Bosch digital multi-scanner, which did a great job finding the rebar that's 4 inches deep in my slab. I'm mounting my post 12 feet on the front side from the back wall using a 1/2 inch by 4.5 inch concrete anchor. I ended up drilling my hole a little shallow and the anchor pulled up a bit during tightening, so I used my Sawzall to cut off the excess. I use 4 3/8 inch by 2.5 inch lag bolts to mount the posts. It's a good idea to have a second set of hands to keep the post steady and ensure it's vertical. What I really like about laser levels is they save me a ton of time. Usually, if I was going to put my posts in the center, I'd have to be measuring off my back wall, laying down a chalk line, and doing the same thing off of my side walls. But instead, I can just use my laser level, line it up with my post over here, and the post all the way over there. That way, I have a continuous line going across, and that's where I need to set the front of my posts. And then all I have to do is measure 13 feet from my outside wall. All right, the loft is starting to take shape. We've got all 4 of our posts up. They're looking really cool, and it's starting to give the scale of the loft, and it's gonna be big, just like planned. So now it's time to get our headers up on our posts. Like I said before, these headers are really heavy and I don't want them to fall off the post while I'm mounting them, so I clamp 2 2x4s to the front and back sides of the post to contain them. With the headers in place, I mounted them using heavy-duty pergola plates and 4 3/8 inch by 2.5 inch lag bolts on the front side of my posts. On the back side of the header at every post, I'm using a heavy duty corner bracket and 6 number 10 2.5 inch structural screws. With the headers up, it's time to get them mounted to the sidewalls. I attached a 2x6 to the wall using several number 10 3 1/8 inch structural screws. I'm mounting the top of the board flush to the top of the ledger and header boards. A really easy way to get this board up and flush to the header and ledger is attaching a temporary wood tab to both ends for the board to hang from. With the 2x6 mounted to the wall, I locked in the header using a framing angle bracket and some number 10 2.5 inch structural screws. Now that the wall sides are secured, it's time to put in our first joist to lock in the other side of the headers. I set up a laser line to show where I wanted to mount the joist and used the same tab method to hang the joist from the header and ledger boards. I mounted the joist hangers to the header and ledger boards first, then removed the hanger tabs to ensure the joist was resting on the joist hanger, then locked in the joist using more number 10 2.5 inch structural screws. All right, the loft is up. It's looking super good. I'm really pleased with it. I'm loving these big and beefy posts, but that's not the end of it. I still got a lot to do. I've got joists to put in. I have a whole big, massive staircase that's gonna go up, and I have some really cool railings for it. But for the sake of time, we're gonna end this video right here, and if you wanna catch the next videos, hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all my future videos. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button for me. It helps me out a ton, and I really do appreciate it. And as always, leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking of the build, if there's anything you do differently. I read all your guys' comments. They mean a ton to me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.